Good afternoon, everyone. It's Bob Pompiani, soon to be joined by Missy Matthews. It's a Tomlin Tuesday, and the first one after a bye week. And the bye weeks historically have done well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We welcome all of you watching on Pittsburgh CW, as well as the Steelers digital media platforms. A lot to cover this week as the Steelers get set for a run of games that, hopefully will put them into position to build some wins here. They're coming off 2 in a row. That certainly helped going into the bye week. Mike Tomlin talked about challenging his coaching staff, and I'm sure he did a lot of that. And also, of course, preparing for the Cleveland Browns, a team that is 4-3, coming off a Thursday night win against the Denver Broncos, 17-14, in which they were injured quite a bit. They had to go with Case Keenum. They had to go without Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Instead, it was D'Ernest Johnson who got his first NFL start and made the most of it, following a really good offensive line to the tune of 146 yards. The Steelers, coming off back-to-back wins, as I said, now have this game. You'll see it live on KDKA coming up on Sunday at 1 o'clock. And then after that, 2 home games against 2 teams that they will be favored to beat. So this is an opportunity to take care of business in the AFC North, which is certainly a very difficult division. I think we all thought it would. I don't think many thought the Cincinnati Bengals would sit atop right now, not only the AFC North, but the entire AFC. They have a record of 5-0, but more specifically are 4-0 in conference play, and that has them up there coming off a demolition in the second half of the Baltimore Ravens, 41-17. So it's a very competitive division, and these head-to-head games obviously will go a long way in determining what happens. Mike Tomlin, I'm sure, will talk about the injury situation. Zach Banner, was active last week. Will he play this week? It's an offensive line that seems to be trending in the right direction. Najee Harris at running back, tied for the leading receiving man on this team. That's how active he has been. In fact, I think he's number 1 in the NFL in terms of running backs with 34 receptions. So they utilize him in a lot of ways, and this will be interesting to see what the Steelers schematically do against the Browns defense, which can come after the quarterback led by, of course, Myles Garrett. So Mike Tomlin is ready to go. Let's hear what Coach T has to say today, getting set for the Cleveland Browns.
Good afternoon. Man, we're excited to get back into the land of the competitors coming off our bye week. Productive bye week for us, but to be honest with you, I hadn't seen a bye week that didn't seemingly come at the appropriate time. Opportunity for us to, take a break and gain some perspective, and by that I mean look around and look at some of the trends going on in the game. That was a component of our week from a coach's standpoint. All 3 phases of the game, things that are trending, things that are challenging, opportunities, and so forth. The bye week is a good week to take a step back and forget about you and forget about a specific opponent, but just look at some global elements and things that are going on in our game and our place in it. How are we working in those areas, or how are we combating some of those things that need to be combated? It was productive from that standpoint. I like the overall health of our group. I don't know that health is going to be a significant issue for any of the guys in terms of availability as we go into this thing, the guys that are on the active roster right now. And so that's a good thing. We got some decisions to make, but those are not real problems. Those are good problems to have. We got quality, capable tackles now that Zach Banner, for instance, is back and a full participant. We'll sort through some of those things this week in terms of how we divide the labor up. As I mentioned, those are good problems to have. Scarcity of talent is a real problem. And so we're excited about where we are. We had a bonus day yesterday, hit some components of ball, 2-minute, et cetera, just to kind of get our feet back in the water and acclimate it. We'll continue with the process and push forward toward Cleveland starting tomorrow from a base plan standpoint. And at this time, I'll talk about those guys a little bit. First, on offense, you can't talk about Cleveland without acknowledging their really potent running attack. They have quality backs, first and foremost Chubb and Hunt and so forth. But they got quality players up front. They spent a great deal of money acquiring some of that talent in free agency, Conklin and others. They got some high drafted talent like Willis. They got a really good collective group there. They do a good job of getting hats on hats. They're individually good players. They're collectively good players. They look like a group that's, got some cohesion in their second year or so together. Can't say enough about Coach Callahan, the line coach and run game coordinator, man. He really does an awesome job with the schematics. He's got continuity with Stefanski, and they've got staff continuity that I think turns up in their run game, and that's why they're able to do some of the things that you see them do. regardless of who the runner is, be able to put up consistent numbers and so forth. But that's not to discount the run talent. Can't say enough about their backs and the depth and the quality of talent that they have at that position. They have some challenging eligibles on the outside as well, and I think that's what rounds out their attack. Beckham and Landry and the tight end group, Peoples-Jones, whether it's Baker Mayfield or Case, man, they have a solid group of eligibles to work with. Don't know who's going to play quarterback for them, but much like last week or our last game when we were talking about having a veteran backup quarterback like Geno, you don't lose a lot of your personality, and I think that's what really stood out to me watching their last game. They didn't lose their personality at all. A solid veteran quarterback who's been a part of the program like Case has provides that opportunity for them, and so we're not overly concerned right now with who their quarterback might be. We're looking at what it is they do collectively, their run game, their coordinated play action and misdirection passing game, and how they utilize all the people that they distribute the ball to. We got some big-time challenges in that way. On the other side of the ball, man, is Myles Garrett and company. He's the guy that's capable of really wrecking your game in an instant. You better be cognizant of him, but he's not a one-man gang. They got some quality people. Clowney, Tack provide quality complements and depth on the edge. They play a lot of people on defense. They get around to the ball. They're fundamentally sound. I've known Joe Woods, their coordinator, for a long time. Really good football coach. We've been in stadiums against him a lot in recent years. He was in San Fran prior to getting to Cleveland. He was in Denver before that. I think we've seen this guy every year since 2018 or 2017. And so we're familiar with him, but he is also familiar with us. It should provide a really competitive atmosphere. The atmosphere is something that has our attention. We realize we're going into an AFC North road game. We expect it to be hostile, Halloween and so forth. But I think as competitors, man, that fires us up. But forget being fired up, man. We got to be duly prepared. And so we're preparing with an edge, understanding all the things that I mentioned and understanding the significance of this game that's waiting on us at the end of the week. But, boy, isn't that what we signed up for? Significant games, big-time competition, divisional play. It's a great way to come off a bye week. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, you mentioned Cleveland's running game and their depth there. Have you been happy with what you've gotten from your backup running backs behind Najee? And do you need to find something there moving into the second half of the season? Are you worried about Najee's workload?
I hadn't had a lot of exposure to our running back depth. A lot of the reasons have to do with things that don't, necessarily involve them. There's been some weeks where we hadn't had a lot of fluidity in terms of our run. And like we've all talked throughout the course of this thing, that minimizes opportunity, and that's less opportunities not only for Najee, for others. And so last week I thought we got some things from KB, and we had enough fluidity in our run game where you're able to see some of the depth things in the division of labor at that position. And hopefully as we continue to grow and trend in the right direction in terms of our run game, I'll be able to better answer that question about the quality of our depth and the components of our depth that round out our group. We've just had some challenges at the early stages of the journey that really make that a difficult question to answer directly.
Mike, when you were talking about health before, do you have any sort of update on Stephon Tuitt, and how do you feel some of the guys along the defensive front have handled themselves in trying to replicate what he and Tyson Alualu have done while they've been injured?
Yep, no update on him. His return is not imminent this week. I don't anticipate it, but although it's going well, he's progressing, but not close enough for participation. We've had some challenges in the defensive line, not only the two that you mentioned, but Carlos Davis has missed some time. But it's provided opportunities for growth. I've been pleased with the general growth and development of Loudermilk. Man, we're challenging Isaiah Buggs, man, to step up and be a consistent varsity contributor. He's a guy that's been around here a number of years now, and opportunity is knocking for him due to the misfortune with Tyson. And so that's the component of this thing that makes football the ultimate team game. Some challenges associated with the guys that you mentioned not being available, but it's also opportunity for others. We're excited about continuing to watch the growth and development of some of those others and watching them answer the bell and rise up and meet the challenges.
Mike, over here. Has Chase Claypool taken that second-year jump that you like to see out of wide receivers, and in what areas does his game need to still progress and develop a bit more?
He's very much still writing that story. We're only about a third of the way through the season. I've liked some of the things that he's done. He's doing really well in all areas. He's getting better in all areas. But the games that lie ahead will ultimately determine the question that you ask in terms of the significance. Stepping up in stages like the one we're about to go to on Sunday will be a significant component of it as well. Divisional road game play is big.
Mike, probably along the lines with the defensive line, what needs to improve in stopping the run defensively?
Fundamentally, guys got to be in gaps. Guys got to tackle well. It's not anything mystical. We got to do a better job than we've done at times, and a lot of that has to do with some young guys and gaining growth and development and exposure that's associated with play, and it's reasonable to expect that to get better. It has in some instances. Loudermilk, Bugs, like the guys that we've been talking about, Henry Mondu, they're getting better, but it can't happen quick enough, particularly when you go into a stadium like we're going into a stadium this weekend.
Mike, you had different options at slot receiver since Juju's out the other day when you played him. Would you like to have one specific guy in that spot, or would it prefer to you just whatever the matchup brings you that game?
It's whatever the matchup brings us. Particularly when you're losing a guy like Juju, like I mentioned, it's not a one-man job. Oftentimes it's a multiple-man job. But even when we had Juju, we do things schematically. We'll put Juju outside, put Chase Claypool inside, put Deontay inside, and most of those alterations are matchup related.
Mike, how would you evaluate the play of your inside backers against the run, and is their performance tethered to defensive linemen helping keep blockers off of them?
Certainly. It goes hand in hand. The quality of their play could be better, but so could the play in front of them. And so together we eat or do not. It's a collective thing. But much like we talk about rush and coverage, those two things working hand in hand, it is very difficult to evaluate inside linebacker play in a vacuum, free from other elements, particularly the men that play in front of them. So, we're working to gain some cohesion there. A lot of the lack of cohesion has to do with some of the moving parts that we've had in front of them.
Yeah, Mike, do you anticipate activating Anthony McFarland? And if so, what kind of role do you see him filling here?
I'm anticipating us activating him. I think the week's work will determine if there's a role, and if there is, what that role is.
Mike, Melvin Ingram hasn't played as much the last few weeks. Is that a role that is going to kind of change for him based on who else is available? Is there other ways you guys can infuse him, and how is he accepting that, being that he was pretty much an every down guy in his career till now?
Reps change based on player availability. TJ has missed some time. Alex Highsmith has missed some time. The time that you just mentioned in reference to the question, both of those guys are back from injury. And so when you have everybody available, there's going to be less snaps. It's just football.
Mike, did you like what you saw from Alex Highsmith the last game? How important is it to get him going? And he played every snap. It's kind of rare for those guys on the edge, is it not?
Yeah, he's playing well, and we need him to. And much like the conversation we're having regarding Chase Claypool, what lies ahead is definitely going to write his story. I like what I've seen, but stay tuned. Divisional road game play, guys that's looking to take a step. That's a good environment in which to do it.
Mike, tangibly, what did you guys feel like you accomplished during the bye week, and how do you feel that really bodes well for you guys heading into this matchup here?
Forget the player element of it. From the coach element of it, like I mentioned, it's an opportunity for us to self-evaluate and do some self-scouting, some analytical studies relative to what it is that we do. But equally important, or more importantly than that, we get an opportunity to look at some trends in the game, some things that are going around in the game of football, offensively, defensively, and special teams. And so, I could, talk specifically about it. I spent a portion of my day last week looking at quarterback mobility and its impact in situational ball, possession down play, red zone, et cetera, as a trend. For example, different components of man-to-man on possession downs on the other side, in dime and so forth. And so, it's good to take a step back and not have to get focused in on one particular opponent or on yourself. And you could take more of a global perspective and look at some broad, sweeping discussions as it pertains to the game of football. And those are things that really help you coming out of a bye week.
Mike, last time you guys saw the Browns, they got the better of you. Does that game come up at all this week? There's a lot of cohesion there. Does that tape come up again, or do you treat this as a completely new slate?
I'm sure it comes up in some form or fashion, but not as a rallying cry or not as a focus of a meeting. There's a lot of variables that are 2021 that should have our attention. We got a lot riding on this game. We're going to play a really good team in their venue. It's 2021. Last year's game means nothing to Najee. It means nothing to KG. It means nothing to Dan Moore. It means nothing to Pat, et cetera, et cetera. You just got to acknowledge that in the game of football, things change year in and year out, and what's seemingly low-hanging fruit is oftentimes irrelevant to some of the people in the room, and so we don't spend a lot of time talking about old stories or old news.
Mike, do you guys use this game against the Browns as a benchmark because you're coming off a bye week, especially against a run game with the way the run defense played against Seattle? Chris Wormley was talking about the same thing you were talking about not lining up in the right spots and having to communicate better. Is this a week where it's like this is a cutting point where a lot of guys are going to have to show who they are?
I understand your question, but I feel like every week is that week, So I'd be less than truthful if I didn't say that. I can convince myself that every week is really significant, and this one is. It doesn't require a lot of convincing. Is AFC North ball, and the things that you mentioned make it big.
Mike, when you look back, what was your evaluation of the offensive line in this first half, and how much more growth do they still have this season?
We've talked about it really just about every week I come in here. I like the overall trajectory of the group. We're doing a better job individually. We're doing a better job collectively with each outing. I think that's a reasonable expectation. It's reflected in minimizing negative plays. Unblocked guys in the backfield is being reduced. Some of our penalty-related things that are awareness things and technical things like holding hands inside, not coming off combinations at the proper angle, causing you to hold on the second level, et cetera. All of those things are improving, and it's just kind of reflective of us gaining individual and collective cohesion, and I expect that to continue.
Acknowledging that Cleveland's personality doesn't change much with the different quarterbacks. I mean, Baker was pretty good against you guys in that wild card game. He's a former #1 pick. I mean, he must bring some different elements when he's in there, right? Or were the injuries maybe affecting what he was able to do those last couple games he was out there?
What is your question?
He does bring something different to that position from Keenum, though, right? That changes the way you guys will prepare from one to the other?
Not based on where I sit here today. Just specifically looking at the schematics and how they attacked and the things that they did a week ago, it was the Cleveland Browns. They just plugged in 5. But that's what a veteran quarterback provides you. It provides you an opportunity to maintain your personality, and it appears that they're capable, and they have done that.
Mike, you were just talking about during the bye week you were able to look at some tendencies league-wide. Last year you didn't have the bye week, so to speak of. Were you able to do that last year, and did that affect you maybe last year at all?
Man, I cannot remember, to be quite honest with you. Man, that's, I don't remember, to be quite honest with you. There's so many things going on right now from a challenge standpoint. I don't spend a lot of time reflecting and comparing present day issues relative to last year. I just don't.
Mike, along the lines of the offensive line with Zach back and Moore having some games now, how do you feel about the depth and that competition there?
Love it. Good problems to have, and that's what I was referring to at the opening when I said we'll sort out the divisional labor, but I'm not overly concerned about it, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, Mike, you talked about the importance of AFC North matchup and all that, but the fact that you've got 3 teams above you in the standings. Does that play into the magnitude of what this game presents?
Not as I sit here today, man. We still got 5 games left in our division. Everybody's got a lot of divisional play. You can waste a lot of time looking at divisional standings on weeks like this one. That story will be written with play over the course of the upcoming months, and that's just the reality of it.
Mike, Ben talked before the break about wanting to spend some time with Jerry, what he's going through. What's it mean to have, an offensive player not really connected to him, want to be helpful and supportive as part of a total team, and do you expect to have Jerry back coaching?
I would strongly disagree with that. We're all connected. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter what area you work in. That's one of the beautiful things of team, and particularly football being the ultimate team game, man. There's intimacy, there's codependency professionally, and you have unique and close relationships because of that. And Ben has worked with Jerry a long time, and so to me that's appropriate and a reasonable perspective to have, and it's appreciated at the same time. Jerry's working his way back to us. I'm not going to get too much into that. Just know that we're in full support of him, and whatever he and his family needs, we will provide.
Mike, Minkah Fitzpatrick, his ability to make big plays has been a big reason for you guys' success on defense the last couple of years, but he hasn't had an interception yet this year. Is that something that is more circumstantial, just game to game? That's what you guys are asking to do, or is that something where you guys are talking about, like, hey, we're going to need you to do something different?
Circumstantial. Stay tuned. Minkah's a playmaker. He makes plays. I'm sure when we're looking back at this, you won't have that question.
Mike, I think, excuse me, that you've mentioned before that game situation sometimes dictates the ability to get takeaways. Is there anything beyond that, whether pressure or anything else, that could help generate more takeaways?
Certainly. Certainly. When that pocket is hot, good things usually happen for us. One feeds the other. There's codependency there, certainly.
Mike, at any point in your coaching career, did you ever have an interest or express an interest in being a head coach in the college game? And do you have any idea how that may or may not have led to folks like Ryan and Doug Whaley and Carson Palmer connecting you to some college jobs?
Hey, guys, I don't have time for that speculation. I mean, that's a joke to me. I got one of the best jobs in all of professional sport. Why would I have any interest in coaching college football? That'll be the last time that I address it. And not only today, but moving forward. Never say never, but never. Okay? Anybody else got any questions about any college jobs? There's not a booster with a big enough blank check.
Anyone else? All right.
Thank you. Anybody asking Sean Payton about that? Anybody asking Andy Reid about stuff like that?
Well, that's a hot way to end it. That was a question that I'm sure at some point was going to get asked, and I anticipated that sort of answer, but not necessarily that strongly. But that puts it to rest.
Hopefully that is the last time that we hear about it during a Mike Tomlin press conference. I think, we were talking about it prior to the start of the press conference, Bob. It was the Steelers bye week. I just feel like some stuff like that creeps up when there's not actual football to talk about. So, as you said, a very strong statement there by Coach Tomlin. I think we can scratch that one off the list.
Speculation happens, but there's not a booster with a big enough paycheck to open it up.
You could write one for Bob, though.
That's
a blank check,
if you want to, sure, I'll be there. No, I thought that was something that eventually was going to get asked. When it did, he put it down pretty quickly, and that's, I'm sure, the answer of the day. Meantime, there's a lot going on with the Cleveland Browns and this team that has been injured, yet they still, and I think one of the key things that Mike Tomlin talked about, Missy, was the fact that this run game still, no matter who's in there, gets the job done. And we saw that last week with this, Dearness Johnson, who's never played before. And in fact, 3 years ago, he was all sort of other jobs, just trying to figure out what he's going to do in his life. He gets a call, gets an opportunity, and behind that offensive line, which Mike Tomlin said is the key, good things can happen.
Yeah, I think every Steelers fan watched that game on Thursday night, and then you had the Ravens and the Bengals playing each other on Sunday. It was a nice AFC North, viewing party during the bye week. But yeah, that offensive line definitely makes things go in terms of that run game. But to see that their backup was able to do that, that does tell you how strong they are, and obviously something that they lean on in terms of their offense.
They've invested a lot in their offensive line. They've drafted to get some good talent in there, and certainly it's working so far. And that's going to be one of the things the Steelers are going to have to focus on in this game. With a defense that's pretty good, it should be an interesting matchup. We'll continue to break down what Mike Tomlin had to say as we continue here. You're watching the Mike Tomlin press conference on Pittsburgh CW and all the Steeler digital platforms. We'll be right back.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz
Field. Jared, what's the challenge for a player that plays at that level to be patient and know things will come?
It's a real challenge because their expectations are probably more than ours, in terms of the type of football he plays, getting the ball back, turnovers, interceptions. He's had a couple to hit him in the hands this year that he normally catches. And so that's, I'm sure, frustrating to him. And you see him out here working, catching with the quarterback, catching off the machine, doing those things to get better. But it'll come. I just, you've been around it long enough. Those guys that prepare and work like he does, the balls will start falling for him.
Speaking of expectations, when you have number one picks on your roster, like you have 3 in your secondary, is there greater expectation, higher expectation on those guys?
I think so. I think that it should be in terms of how we play. Those guys were drafted one for a reason, and we expect them to play up to that level. And I think that we've had a couple glitches here and there, but I think overall our group is performing well. We're operating well. We just need to make some more splash plays.
I know injuries was a part of it, but the first 4 or 5 weeks, it seemed like there was a lot of moving pieces in the secondary, a lot of different packages with different players. Was that a function of wanting to stay, not be predictable, or is that a function of trying to find the right people? And have you found the right people to be in the spots that you want them in?
I think there's a little bit of both in terms of trying to not go out there and have those guys say, okay, he's here, this is what we're getting.
Join the Steelers for this year's virtual Rock Steelers Style event. Watch live on the Steelers digital and social media platforms on Friday, November 5th at 8 p.m. and donate to some great charitable causes. For more information, visit Steelers.com/RockSteelersStyle.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Productive bye week for us, but to be honest with you, seen a bye week that didn't seemingly come at the appropriate time. Opportunity for us to, take a break and gain some perspective, and by that I mean look around and look at some of the trends going on in the game. That was a component of our week from a coach's standpoint.
So that's what happens in a bye week. They do a lot of different stuff, not just game planning. I know that's part of what goes on because at some point you have to turn your attention to the next opponent, which is the Cleveland Browns, but a good opportunity to take a breath, look around, see what's happening, and then hopefully get healthy for this team.
Yeah, and Coach Tomlin said that, health is not going to be a major concern this week. I feel like this is the first time maybe since week 1 that we're able to say that. So that is good time. The rest of the bodies, the players get the 4 days minimum off. That's per the CBA. So that's also, something that happens. But just having a chance to self-evaluate, I think coming off of the Seattle game, tackling was a big issue. And they talked about that as they moved through practice. Yesterday was a bonus day. So, it's a lot different than what 2020 was like, where the bye week was, you found out, Friday afternoon, I think, that, hey, you have the weekend off. So
yeah, so hopefully that'll help them out. I know this, the Steelers have had very good numbers after bye weeks over the last 4, as you take a look at our BetMGM by the numbers, and you'll see they've won their last 4 games coming off of a bye, so that bodes well for the preparation that Mike Tomlin and his staff puts in. They're also 3-0 since 2002 against Cleveland after a bye. This is a Browns team that has some injuries, of course, and we don't know at this point who's going to be the quarterback, but I thought Mike Tomlin said the bottom line, Case Keenum, when he's in there, they don't lose their personality. And I think that's the message there, because he does a lot of the same things, maybe not to the level of Baker Mayfield when he's healthy, but he does those things that allow them to do what they do best.
Yeah, and they just faced Geno Smith, who is the backup to Russell Wilson. So kind of in the same scenario. I think maybe this one will play out further into the week. I think we knew pretty quickly that Geno Smith was going to be the guy for that Seattle game. But who knows? Baker wanted to play Thursday on that short week, and then they had to pull him back and say no. So I'm sure, knowing it's an AFC North matchup and where their team is, he's going to want to play.
And Kevin Stefanski was asked about it multiple times yesterday. All he said is, we'll see, we'll see. So that decision won't be coming anytime in the next couple of days. But, of course, the Steelers have to put their preparation in. The one thing we know about Case Keenum, I mean, he played against the Steelers last year, too, early in the season. And he's been around the league. He knows how to do things. He's not one of these guys who gets, petrified when he's under pressure. He adapts to it. He's got some wheels still that he utilizes when necessary. He's a good backup quarterback. I mean, if you're looking around the league at backup quarterbacks, he's one of the guys I think a lot of teams would like to have.
Absolutely, and as Coach said, whether it is Case or Baker, they have a lot of eligibles, and we've seen that throughout their first half of the season. Just the wide receivers, the running backs we've talked about. There's a lot of time and money spent on building that offense, and as we said, it starts up front, but a lot of eligibles, as Coach said.
And one other thing from practice yesterday, Nick Chubb was back at practice. He missed the game against Denver, as did Kareem Hunt, but again, they plugged and played a lot of guys, and those guys were effective. So we'll see what happens this week. If Chubb likely will play against the Steelers, bottom line is they got to deal with that offensive line, which is pretty good, but so is the Steelers' defensive front seven. We'll talk more about that as we continue here. Bob Pompiani along with Missy Matthews, thanks for being with us as we continue to break down the Mike Tomlin press conference, getting set for a big game in Cleveland this coming Sunday. We'll be right back.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Yeah, I celebrated my son's 4th birthday. It was awesome.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Hey, Eric, are you disappointed that you haven't been involved as much this year? Maybe like last year, or and maybe why that might be?
Yeah, I can't answer that one. You gotta ask that to one of the coaches.
You did get involved when you had a rushing touchdown last time you guys were out there. How did that play develop? Is that part of the Matt Canada offense, kind of doing some unconventional things to get involved?
Yeah, they called a play that had my number on it. We executed it, scored a touchdown.
You've done that a few other times in your career, though. Is that something you like to do to get involved?
I just think it's a play that's really good. I didn't hit it. It wasn't my play. It wasn't my design. It just was brought to our attention. And I've always liked the play because we do a lot of motions and shifts, and it fits to what we're doing right now. So I didn't know it was gonna, you never know what the play's gonna turn out to be like, but just happy, it gave us a little momentum there. So that was good.
I look at your career rushing stats, and it's like
5 carries, 3 touchdowns, -6 total yards. How did that happen?
Yeah, I had a fumble, man. We were playing Jacksonville when they called the wrong play, but the play was designed for me. And even though it was the wrong play, we knew it was the wrong play. I still had to do it. Miles Jack flipped me up in the air, man. That ball flew out. He got a little ways away. I think I was up like 15 yards, but he pulled all that away with that fumble. So,
join the Steelers for this year's virtual Rock Steelers Style event. Watch live on the Steelers digital and social media platforms on Friday, November 5th at 8 p.m. and donate to some great charitable causes. For more information, visit Steelers.com/RockSteelersStyle.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
No update on him. His return is not imminent, anticipated, but all is going well. He's progressing, but not close enough for participation. We've had some challenges in the defensive line, not only the two that you mentioned, but Carlos Davis has missed some time. But it's provided opportunities for growth. I've been pleased with the general growth in Loudermilk. Man, we're challenging Isaiah Buggs, man, to step up and be a consistent varsity contributor. He's a guy that's been around here a number of years now, and opportunity is knocking for him due to the misfortune.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity is knocking for guys who are injured. But Missy, when you think about no Stephon Tuitt, and again, there's no timeline on a return for him, it makes you realize without him, without Tyson Alualu, just the kind of performance Cam Hayward has put in this year. Because those guys normally work, in sync together. But without them, man, it really does underscore just how dominant he's been.
Yeah, Chris Wormley spoke to the media yesterday after the Steelers bonus day practice and was, of course, asked about Cam and just the 100%, maybe 110% he brings to every game. And I'm sure he is missing, the likes of Tyson and Stephon, as you said. But Carlos Davis, a younger guy, but who's been here, dealing with that knee injury, I think that's somebody that if you can get him back, maybe that helps the rotation just a little bit more, because I do feel like there is a lot of wear and tear happening with not enough guys, and maybe not enough guys who are doing exactly what they want. They talked about the gaps, knowing where to go. So that's definitely something that hopefully we'll see improve as we head to the latter part of the season.
Yeah, and you look at guys like Loudermilk when he's in there, even Chris Wormley, if you look at some of the grading going on metrically around the NFL, he is doing a pretty good job in there. And boy, they need number 95 and others to do that as well. And Buggs with an opportunity, sometimes he makes plays, he needs to make more of them when given the chance.
Yeah, definitely something that they need to improve on, as we said, with the defense, the tackling. As Coach said, it's up front. They have to do their job too, but the guys behind, they're there for a reason as well. So, again, hopefully that is something, especially going against this Browns offense on Halloween, is something they're going to have to really improve on.
And I think next level, if you look at it too, it's tackling, it's being in position to make plays like Devin Bush. For highly as he's regarded, and he's coming off an injury, and I'm sure that plays part of this, but he only has on average 2 solo tackles per game. They need more out of the guys on the inside, second layer, when those running backs get to that point.
Yeah, I do think the good thing is that the defense seems to be settling a little bit in terms of the rotation when they bring in Trey Norwood, the 7th round pick of this current draft. And then you also have Arthur Maulet. It feels like, talking to Terrell Austin last week during the Steelers bye, that it seems like they're gelling better. So hopefully it is everybody doing their job, knowing it well. And if everyone's doing the same job, they're going to be okay. You
mentioned Norwood. I thought that was one of the best, performances that he's put out. And again, 7th round pick. Not many people expect much contribution in a rookie for a 7th round pick, but boy, open field tackles, he was terrific, big 3rd down plays, and those are plays that change the game around with regard to field position And I thought he was outstanding in that regard.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the Steelers offense needing to, have some splash in their game. I think in terms of the defense, you are seeing those splash plays. The batted down balls by Cam Hayward, as you said, pass breakup by Norwood, and of course, TJ Watt just being TJ Watt. So hopefully that's something that continues. And, Coach was asked about Mika Fitzpatrick not having an interception and said, he's a playmaker. Stay tuned. You won't be asking me this question much longer.
And they need certainly plays from the back end as well as they get ready for a team that has high expectations, even with their injuries. They're 4-3. You look at the AFC North. The other thing is, who would have thought Cincinnati? And I think all of us believe Cincinnati was a team that was going to arrive at some point with Joe Burrow. They added Jamar Chase. Those two guys, bread and butter there, and they have been terrific. The fact that they're number one in the AFC right now tells you parity exists in the NFL once again.
And that was a very convincing win. That they didn't just win by chance. They almost beat the Packers as well. So I do think, they are going to be a tough cookie for everybody as we head into more play in terms of the AFC North.
And the Steelers will get another crack at them in Cincinnati. Right now, the Bengals are 4-0 in conference play. We'll take a break. We'll come back and talk more about the Steelers and the Browns, a game you'll see Sunday, 1 o'clock on KDKA TV. We'll be back with more right here on a Tomlin Tuesday. It's the Mike Tomlin Press Conference.
Join the Steelers for this year's virtual Rock Steelers Style event. Watch live on the Steelers digital and social media platforms on Friday, November 5th at 8 p.m. and donate to some great charitable causes. For more information, visit Steelers.com/RockSteelersStyle.
The terrible towel is twirling. And this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz
Field. One guy gets hurt, gets healthy, then another guy goes down. How do you kind of manage that?
Just continue to build reps and rapport and practice. And then, you try to carry it over to the game situation and you put your best, effort forth and do the best you can. But these young men are working hard with a quarterback that has seen as much as our quarterback has seen. It's a little bit easier, but we just still have to create more. And with those opportunities, we have no doubt that those plays will come.
Chase is obviously a very gifted athlete. Can you teach a guy like him how to adjust to the ball in the air and those sorts of things? Or is that something that's just innate and God-given and you either have it or you don't?
It's kind of layered. Every play is different. Every ball placement can be different. Like I said, we work really, really hard in order to try to manufacture plays. Chase is unique, with his size and speed and ability to adjust, and then sometimes in situations you just have to make the play as a guy. We haven't clearly done enough of that for everybody's liking, including ours. It's been talked about and addressed. We'll continue to work, and like I said, more of those plays will come. He's too talented individually, and he's counted on, by everybody in this building, including himself, to make those plays, and he will.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Together we eat or do not. It's a collective. But much like we talk about rush and coverage, those two things working hand in hand. It is very difficult to evaluate inside linebacker play in a vacuum, free from other elements, particularly the men that play in front of them. So, we're working to gain some cohesion there. A lot of the lack of cohesion has to do with some of the moving parts that we've had in front of them.
Yeah, it all does tie together, and I think that's a good point that Mike Tomlin made, Missy. And they brought in Joe Schobert to add to that group. Overall, though, I think they all need to be better in that regard, just to help out in that situation. Robert Spillane is a guy who's really getting his opportunity in the run game, trying to stop it. He's been very prolific at it, by comparison. So those are all areas that work together. And again, it starts up front, it moves to that level afterwards.
And I don't think using it, as an excuse, but Devin Bush coming off of that, major knee surgery and into the season. So I think 26 games is the number of games he's played in the NFL. But certainly, as Coach said, the quality of play of him, Joe Schobert, everybody in the guys up front needs to improve. And I do think, using Spillane, maybe finding a niche for him is something they're also doing in terms of really figuring out how to utilize the pieces they have on that defense.
Yeah, and also coverage over the middle, too, with some of the big tight ends in the game. That's been a problem for a lot of teams, not just the Steelers, but the Browns offer a situation like that where they have a guy who can get loose over there. So these are all parts of what the Steelers have to be aware of, regardless who's a quarterback. A lot of people pay attention to who's a quarterback, but if that offensive line provides protection, it doesn't matter because those quarterbacks will be able to find open receivers.
And when you have a good run game, you can possess the ball a lot longer and you can make life miserable for the opposing offense.
Well, that offense, as far as the Steelers are concerned, we're talking about offensive line. We're going to get to that in a second because Mike Tomlin had some interesting things to say about what happens next with them, because they have had some injuries there, of course, and they've also had now a situation where they can utilize guys at different positions, swing tackles. We've seen Chooks go from one side to the other, and now Zach Banner comes back in that situation. And I think it's very important for the Steelers to get cohesion there, but it's good to have other guys. Joe Haig, when he got an opportunity, was pretty good as well.
Yeah, I really liked when Joe Haig was able to fill in there, but Zach Banner, he was promoted to the Steelers 53 prior to the Seattle game. They chose to have him inactive, so didn't get a helmet. That is something that Coach said, depending on what happens this week in practice, if he'll get one or not for this upcoming game.
We have a lot more to get into as we continue here with the Steelers and the Browns. It's a big game, a pivotal game. All these head-to-head matchups in the AFC North are going to be big. It starts this Sunday with Cleveland hosting Pittsburgh. We'll have more on our breakdown of the Mike Tomlin press conference right after we take a short time out. You're watching it live on Pittsburgh CW and all Steeler digital platforms.
Join the Steelers for this year's virtual Rock Steelers Style event. Watch live on the Steelers digital and social media platforms on Friday, November 5th at 8 p.m. and donate to some great charitable causes. For more information, visit Steelers.com/RockSteelersStyle.
The terrible towel is twirling. And this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
You're obviously a different type of player than playing in the slot. What do you feel you bring to it?
Juju brings a strong, just a smart. He brings a personality to the offense on the field. But for me, I'm just going and doing my job, doing what I'm asked, building trust with Ben and the offense, and be able to make those plays when it matter, and them be able to depend on me.
Do you think you've developed as a wide receiver this season? Coming in, and both talked about your growth in the offense this year. How do you feel?
I feel great. When my number's called, I'll make the play. Time will tell.
What have you been able to show in practice and build some camaraderie with those guys? You feel like you had the opportunity to do that?
Yeah, and it's practice is different in the game. It's building that trust factor in the game, making the plays, making the routine plays, and just be rare until I got to be Superman, And other than that, I just make my plays I need to make with my number called.
Is that the temptation to try to, you want to make that play when sometimes you just take what the defense gives you?
Yeah.
Do you feel like your communication with Ben has carried over well from practice to?
Yes. Me having last year, be able to come in a little later in training camp, it was tough for me then, but after having the offseason with them and training camp, it was a little easier, and it's going to start, I think, going off into the game.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
I like the overall trajectory of the group. We're doing a better job individually. We're doing a better job collectively with each outing. I think that's a reasonable expectation. It's reflected in minimizing negative plays. Unblocked guys in the backfield is being reduced. Some of our penalty-related things that are awareness things and technical things like holding hands inside, not coming off combinations at the proper angle, causing you to hold on the second level, et cetera. All of those things are improving, and it's just kind of reflective of us gaining individual and collective cohesion, and I expect that to continue.
I think we went into the season, Missy, everybody knew that it was going to be sort of a baptism by fire for these guys. The Steelers chose to draft players, implement them, play, maybe sooner than in some cases they would have liked. But it takes time, and I think we have seen some of the results that come with playing together for a while, despite some of these injuries. As Mike Tomlin mentioned, the penalties at the beginning, there were a lot of them, and that's been cut down. You know, negative plays in the backfield. So I think that is what he's referring to when he says trending forward.
Yeah, and as he always says, stay on schedule, play mistake-free. That's how you score as an offense. But even, you know, we were talking about Zach Banner just a little bit ago. He was asked about maybe the competition, the depth that there is at tackle, and he said, you know, I love it. I'm excited about it. So I think maybe that's something we'll have to watch throughout this week of practice.
Gives him a luxury, a nice problem to have. That's what Mike Tomlin said about it. But Zach Banner, I would expect him to be in there at some point. He had this entire bye week, and that's what I thought when he was activated. Maybe they were waiting for some extra time just to get him acclimated to it. Do you expect him to play this week?
I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see. I do think, you know, Dan Moore is really asserting himself nicely as a rookie who is, you know, blocking for Big Ben on that side. I definitely think we'll have to wait and see in terms of what they're going to do if they want to keep the cohesion that they're trying to build and have been building, or if they want to insert him. They could even do, you know, going back to the tackable, the eligible receiver. So we'll have to wait and see.
Now, this will be, again, a very difficult assignment for those guys because they got to deal with what Cleveland has to offer. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney, but it still is all centered around Myles Garrett and some of the stuff that happens there. I do think Cleveland has a weakness over the middle of the field, if the Steelers can get to that, with a guy like Freiermuth or Ebron or whoever they want. But if you look at Myles Garrett, he just continues to put up. Last week had a sack and a half against Denver. They had 6 total pressures, he and Clowney combined. So that's got to be the focus of this offensive line.
Yeah, Coach, you know, when he said, all right, let's talk about Cleveland's defense, it's Myles Garrett and company. He can wreck your game, kind of how, you know, other coaches talk about TJ Watt, that said it's not a one-man game. And they do have a lot of, you know, Clowney, different additions, and just the strength that they have even in their secondary. Their coordinator, Joe Woods, as Coach pointed out, you know, he was previously with the Denver Broncos, the 49ers. So the Steelers have faced him almost every year since 2018, I believe he said. So he knows the Steelers team very well, and I think, you know, when you're in the AFC North and you see each other so much, and of course that ugly playoff loss against them last year, you kind of start to understand better how to prepare for that opponent.
Their secondary's had some injury problems as well, but they have guys who've not played as well as I think their coaching staff and Kevin Stefanski would have liked, like Greedy Williams. So I think there's some opportunities down the field there as well. But I would be surprised if the Steelers didn't get back into the middle of the field. They haven't really done it that much, but I think this is a good opportunity to exploit that area of the field to try to help out the game down the field on the sidelines.
And Pat Freiermuth, the rookie tight end, you know, he's been very reliable, and I think Ben has even mentioned they do need to get him involved a little bit more. He is somebody that I think could really help them in terms of offensively, like you said.
There's always motivation, but when you lose the way the Steelers did last year in the playoffs, there's extra motivation. You can bet that some of the guys who were here remember that. You're going to hear from Mike Tomlin about that as we look ahead to Cleveland and Pittsburgh coming up Sunday, 1 o'clock on KDKA. We'll be right back.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field is everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Join the Steelers for this year's virtual Rock Steelers Style event. Watch live on the Steelers digital and social media platforms on Friday, November 5th at 8 p.m. and donate to some great charitable causes. For more information, visit Steelers.com/RockSteelersStyle.
When the line moves, when things change like that, we have certain plays for this and this. It's more so of us being in the right space, and if we're in the right gaps, I think a lot of those rushing yards that we had gave up against Seattle wouldn't be there. So that's what we're looking to do against Cleveland this week.
Chris, I don't know how much you've seen of Cleveland. Is there anything you have seen that sticks out about their line to you?
Yeah, they're big, they're physical, they can move people off the ball when you're not ready for it. And like I said, as a defensive lineman, that's going to be our biggest challenge this week is stopping the run with guys like Conklin, guys like Bitonio. Those guys have been in the league a long time and they play great ball. So we're going to have to stop the run if we want to win the game.
What's the biggest thing you remember that stands out to you from that wild card game against them last year?
I mean, just how fast they started. They got up on us, I think, maybe 28-0 in the first quarter, and you're kind of sitting there like, damn, what just happened? We have 3 quarters left of this game. And if it wasn't for that first quarter, I think things would have been different. But I think the biggest thing was just that shock value of we're down 4 scores and it's the first quarter. So we're not trying to do that this week for sure.
As a player, is that a game that you just kind of flush, or do you let something like that motivate you throughout the offseason and even this week and get ready to play them again?
Yeah, especially if it was our playoff game we lost, that's going to stick with us for the next 8 months until we put on the pads for camp. So I've been thinking about it a lot. I know a lot of the other guys have been thinking about it, and we're trying to right that ship this week Sunday.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
We got a lot riding on this game. We're going to play a really good team in their view. It's 2021. Last year's game means nothing to Najee. It means nothing to KG. It means nothing to Dan Moore. It means nothing to Pat, et cetera, et cetera. You just got to acknowledge that in the game of football, things change year in and year out, and what seemingly low-hanging fruit is oftentimes irrelevant to some of the people in the room.
That's Mike Tomlin talking about last year, 48-37 loss at home. And he's right, it may not mean anything to the guys who were not here, but Eric Ebron made it very clear that those who were here said if you don't get fired up for this game, then you just don't have a pulse, basically.
Yeah, and Coach Tomlin did acknowledge that, it is going to be brought up. How could you not bring it up when you're preparing for the Browns, even if it's just older guys telling the younger guys, like you said, who might not have paid attention to it last year, but they're not using it as a rallying cry. It's not like they're saying, well, we got our butts whooped at home in the playoffs. This is the motivation we're taking into this game. It is going to be a crazy, crazy environment. I believe on Sunday it's Halloween. The Browns have been doing well, and I just feel like their fans are going to make it very inconvenient for the Steelers.
But the Steelers would love that challenge, and a big win would go a long way in helping them because they have back-to-back home games coming up with Chicago starting next Monday night. And that's going to wrap it up. We'll talk about that game next week. For Missy Matthews, I'm Bob Pompiani. Thanks for joining us here on Pittsburgh CW and all the Steeler digital platforms. Until next week, have a great one.